From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Positively Kansas.
It's time for Positively Kansas. Coming up, before there were giant malls, there was one place Wichitans went to shop. We look at the surprising story of a retail pioneer that has stood the test of time for 70 years. Then we'll step back in time. A beloved Wichita museum celebrates a major milestone by bringing the Old West back to life. Later, a Wichita artist is turning trash into treasure. See how bent fenders and rusted scrap metal are being transformed into stunning works of art. And finally, the unmistakable sound of a Kansas summer. But what is the secret life behind that loud buzzing in the trees? I'm Sierra Scott. A half hour of information and inspiration starts right now on Positively Kansas. Before Town East, before Town West, before the mall was even a thing, Wichita shoppers drove to one place. In 1955, Park Lane Shopping Center opened, and it changed the way this region of Kansas shopped. Now, 70 years later, Park Lane is still here in a world where so many others have come and gone. Chris Frank reports.
There was a time, if you wanted to shop in Wichita, you went downtown. You drove, you parked, you walked, you shopped. And you may have repeated those steps if the next store you needed was blocks away.
But this is a photograph of Park Lane Shopping Center. In the 50s, it was the shopping center. People came from all around to shop here. Everything else was, prior to that, was downtown.
In 1955, this changed everything. A new shopping experience with the opening of the Park Lane Shopping Center on what used to be an 80-acre farm.
Here we had a slogan when we opened, and it was called, shop at the store where you park at the door. And that was a real big deal, and it's still very relevant in today's market. In 1956, the first birthday celebration of Park Lane Shopping Center, and this is the original paper.
The multi-page newspaper ad celebrating Park Lane's first birthday shows shoppers coming from Kingman, Halstead, Hutchinson, well, even Independence, 100 miles away. Now, what Wichita was experiencing was far from unique. The nation's economy then was prospering. Park Lane's opening was part of a move away from centralized downtown-only shopping.
There was prosperity in the 50s. It started to come back after the war, and people were spending money, and they were shopping, and this was a big deal for Wichita to have a center this big. Not just Wichita, but I think possibly Kansas.
A lot has changed since 1955. The newness here wore off decades ago. Newer and bigger shopping centers and malls have been built since Park Lane in 1955. But consider this. Some of those malls are long gone or have been or are being repurposed for other than retail use. Think of all the challenges the retail industry has faced in recent decades in the U.S., Kansas, and right here in Wichita. This is the Boulevard Plaza. It used to be chock full of retailers and shoppers in all of these stores. The parking lot was full of those shoppers' automobiles. Now it might as well be in a ghost town. And the city of Wichita has now declared this a nuisance.
70 years in today's world is unheard of. The fact that we're almost 100% occupied as of today and have been for years and decades just speaks to the people that work for us and also the tenants here and how resilient they are.
Garvey says the center has had to change with the times, including the up and down economic cycles. But through it all, Park Lane is still here.
When it opened, a lot of the tenants came from downtown.
And that involved a retailer's belief then that shoppers were ready for a new shopping experience away from downtown. In its beginning and in its earlier years, Park Lane was all retail. Now, as time passed, Park Lane evolved to a mixture of retail and office space.
We had to convert the downstairs into office because retail was dying.
Garvey says being able to backfill vacancies with office space leases has given Park Lane a competitive advantage.
Up until the 80s, it was probably all retail. And then we started to have a lot of vacancy back here.
Changing with the times is the way of survival in the business world. And that's how Park Lane has survived to see its 70th birthday.
And we have to continue to change and maintain the parking lots and maintain the area.
The list of retailers now gone from here would be lengthy, but one of the stores that's been able to thrive, not just survive, is Bookaholic.
We opened it in '93, my parents did. It was just this one little section right here. We've had 5 expansions since '93.
Her parents, David and Maria Lovett, started small in 1993, just a single storefront. Today, Bookaholic has grown into what the family believes is the largest bookstore in Kansas. 3 locations, including this flagship store at Park Lane.
We have a huge section of children's books. We do, like I said, fiction, nonfiction. We have history, religion, cookbooks, craft books.
While online shopping changed the retail landscape, Bookaholic has thrived by appealing to people who still want to hold a book in their hand.
I think people who like books want to own books, physical books.
Gene Roth has watched other small businesses come and go at Park Lane over the years, but this family-owned shop has endured, even as the retail world shifted around them.
We have been fortunate.
She remembers the shopping center in its prime, when Park Lane was known for one thing.
And this was the store. They always said they would park at the doors. You could shop here and park at the doors. And back in the heyday when we opened here, there was lots and lots of retail here.
Fitzroy blames some of the problems of other retail strip centers and larger centers with the change of owners. Park Lane has the same ownership, Builders Inc., part of the Garvey family businesses.
We had to change with the times.
Very little in retail and office space stays the same for long. So, from an 80-acre farm to a regional shopping destination to a mixed-use center still going strong. After 7 decades, Park Lane continues to live by the same idea that started it all. Shop at the store where you park at the door. This is Chris Frank for Positively Kansas.
So when you think about it, Park Lane's story isn't just about shopping, it's about endurance. In 2025, Wichita's old Cowtown Museum turned 75 years old. In honor of that big birthday, the museum held a series of celebrations, including its annual county fair. Anthony Powell was among the attendees.
There's no better way to see Cowtown than on a horse-drawn carriage ride, and there was plenty to see on this day of the museum hosting its annual county fair, a depiction of life in the 1800s, all part of the museum's 75th anniversary in 2025. How about some baseball? The old-fashioned kind with no gloves. We caught a few innings of the Wichita Red Stockings taking on the Topeka Bulldozers. Nearby, a blacksmith was hard at work with various projects. And just like it was way back when, the saloon was hopping with old-fashioned entertainment.
I think Cowtown is a really good representation of what it was like as the country kind of settled the high plains, as it expanded westward, and the impact that it had both on Native Americans, but also the impact it had on the landscape here with cattle drives, with the expansion of the railroad.
Not today, boys!
Quint says he loves watching visitors take a trip in a time machine, like Chris Angleton, who always looks forward to bringing his kids here.
They like playing back in time. They run around and pretend that we're back in the olden days. and just make the story up as we go along, and it's different every time.
When other people were alive, when I was younger, I always wanted to see how they lived.
And for younger visitors, Cowtown also offers an opportunity to get outside, do some hands-on learning, and get off their devices.
You get more time with your friends, and it's just better to be out here with your friends and not just be watching videos all day.
Because it's fun and it has fresh air and you don't need to bring anything.
And you learn a lot.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Cowtown relies heavily on its many volunteers, like Lin Young, who has been out here for more than 3 decades. His 100-year-old fiddle provides soothing sounds of the Old West. Young told us one of his many highlights is meeting international visitors.
The most that you see out here that I've seen come from France. So there's quite a few visitors from there. So there's a number of tunes, and I'm amazed at what they know that we know that are old-time tunes. You know, nursery rhymes and theme tunes and so on.
So whether it be for its county fair or any other event, the old Cowtown Museum offers a very unique learning and entertaining experience. A chance for families to spend some quality time and learn about a time when life was in so many ways so much simpler.
So this is just a nice break where you can come, you can swing on the tree swing that's behind me, you can stroll down the street and pop into any of the businesses that would have existed in Wichita in this time period. And really what we hope is to kind of foster these intergenerational experiences.
In Wichita, I'm Anthony Powell for Positively Kansas.
2026 will be another busy year at Cowtown. All year long, the museum will be holding events to commemorate America's 250th birthday. It takes all kinds to make an interesting world. Turning auto wrecks into art is what drives Greg Johnson. This Wichitan spent a career pulling dents out of banged up cars while sculpting metal art on the side. Now, as Chris Frank shows us, Johnson is sculpting art full-time from metal pieces that were destined for the scrap heap.
There is a curious-looking building east of downtown Wichita. Southbound I-135 Canal Route drivers have long noticed the sports car appearing to have left the freeway and crashing into Greg Johnson's auto body complex on Kansas Street. That marketing tool went well with Greg Johnson's artistic creativity.
I have lots of artwork to sell.
For the past 44 years, Johnson's shops were filled with vehicles needing body repairs. Johnson and his employees have put hundreds, perhaps thousands of wrecks back together for customers. And while getting wrecks back out on the road, Johnson has also been turning the discarded car metal into sculptures. His artwork graces professional offices and homes. One of his sculptures is at the Texas Motor Speedway. Now Johnson has had enough of collision repair. He's turning what was his part-time sculpting side hustle into his full-time passion.
Instead of making things look like they used to, which is repairing a collision, which we're good at, that's like 44 years of that business. Now, I'm never really sure where I'm going to wind up when I start things.
A shop visit a few months earlier found Johnson getting a workout sanding down rough spots on a classic Buick Riviera.
I say work like this. I've been doing it for years and years and years, but not got it anymore. You get to feeling it in your shoulder, you get feeling it in your elbow. You can be in all kinds of denials about getting older, but it happens.
We all know the hands of time don't stop for us. So Johnson decided it was time to retire from his body shop business and devote his remaining time to the artwork he's fallen in love with. He draws some inspiration from the scrap metal itself. Then he turns his head heavenward, where he says he also draws inspiration.
You just pay attention, and this is a good example right here. I had no idea what this piece was going to be.
And then it dawned on him. This has to be an orchid, sculpted in part from a wrecked Opel GT car. How it will be finished is yet to be determined. Now, there is one sculpture in particular here that demands attention.
He's built from vintage stainless steel moldings like back in the 70s, the early 80s. I scrapped out a couple of salvage yards twice in the 28 months I was building him and to get enough material.
This is Johnson's depiction of an archangel. He named it Gerald.
I would say he's my unapologetic Christian sculpture.
He started working on his archangel in 1994.
And I worked on him for 2 years.
It is common perception that as we age, time seems to move more quickly. At 73, Johnson is more aware of his earthly mortality. It's why he wants to use his remaining years to work on his art. The marketing and the selling of his art is part of Johnson's next phase.
I have lots of artwork to sell, lots of stuff that's done already, that's in crates. I'm just not hauling them out to shows anymore, out of state, out of town, because that's just a lot of work.
So he will market his art from Wichita.
This is called EF2. Again, this is one of my pieces. This is just out of trash, just out of scrap fenders that are taken off in the process of doing, and I have hundreds of fenders left stockpiled.
The EF2 Tornado was on display in Old Town, where it could be seen twisting in the wind.
It's been through like 3 hailstorms outside. Didn't phase it at all.
Johnson gets inspiration from a lot of sources. A trip to Monument Valley, Utah, inspired this project called Monument.
I like to make things that please people, but they're going to have to please me first.
And he acknowledges not everyone is going to like every piece of art he makes. The metal lines on the sculptures can go in many different directions, quite differently than the lines on a collision repair.
With collision repair, you know where you're going. You're making it look like it used to. With sculpture work, and I've said this for years, with sculpture work, it's the dynamic end. You're not really sure where you're going to wind up until you get there, and that's the fun of it.
He says there's no time schedule with finishing each project. There's no one hanging over his head saying, I don't want it this way, I want it this way. And the colors he now gets to work with, he says, are much richer and more varied than those colors for collision repair.
But you get to use colors. I'm so done with whites and silvers. And I mean, there's some beautiful car colors, but mainly they're kind of boring compared to what you can do with, the colors of nature are so much more vivid and vibrant. And the way they go together when you can just have fun with them.
There seems to be no shortage of raw material here for Johnson to draw from.
These bumpers are actually raw material for artwork also.
These bumpers will be repurposed into art. Johnson doesn't have to purchase any canvases like other artists do. His canvases are collision body parts. Motorists involved in wrecks keep creating more bended metal for Johnson to work with. Johnson has all these storage units full of body parts ready for the artist's creativity to mold into new sculptures. He just needs the time.
This has been raw material.
Raw material waiting to be molded by the artist. As you can see, Johnson holds on to a lot of things.
Don't throw away anything.
What might look like junk to someone else might be his next piece of artwork. He used to take these sculptures to art shows across the country, but he won't do that any longer. He says transporting them costs too much money. In today's world, he can show them on the internet, using social media outlets to attract customers.
I've got this day to get as much as I can done on just create new pieces, because when I croak, this will be my legacy, and I want it to be a good legacy.
Johnson says he's been blessed with a talent, and he says he intends to use it for as long as he can. In Wichita, this is Chris Frank for Positively Kansas.
Johnson says his love of sculpting makes him wish he'd taken an art class before his mid-30s. The buzz of cicadas, also known as jarflies, rings out like a chorus each summer across Kansas. But while they're easy to hear, they're not easy to spot due to their unusual lifestyle, as Mike Blair shows us in this week's Kansas Wild Edge Report.
It's a hot July afternoon, and the trees buzz with the sounds of cicadas. It's a common summer sound, but you don't often see their makers. These big, hard-shelled insects stay high in leafy trees where they're hard to spot. Their loud-pitched calls, made to attract a mate, are tip-offs for hungry predators. Many birds and animals relish them for food. Mississippi kites put them at the top of their menu. But even so, their serenades go on. Cicadas live only a week or so in the adult stage, and during that time they must reproduce. So there's no time to waste. Most of us know cicadas only by their cast nymphal skins on trees. With the adults hiding high overhead, these empty shells hint at a fascinating story that lasts up to 5 years underground before the insects emerge. Cicada nymphs eat tree roots, burrowing deep into the soil and passing years before coming to the surface. But their cycles are staggered so that some emergence occurs every summer. An hour after sunset, emergence begins. A nymph ventures from its burrow and begins a ponderous trek. Encountering a vertical surface, it climbs. Usually, this is the tree that it lived under all of its life. Movements are slow and careful. The fragile insect, soft and especially tender at this stage, uses its 6 legs to carefully explore the best footholds. The large hooks on its front legs help it to keep from falling. It needs a secure spot where all of its legs can hook solidly for the molting movements to come. Then finally, it settles down. Skin splits along the back and the soft creature inside begins to wriggle out. It's a slow process, taking more than an hour. Movements are so slow it seems that nothing is happening at all. But the adult is gradually breaking free. Wing buds clear the nymphal skin, and the insect's copper-based blood, blue-green instead of red like our own iron-based blood, begins to fill the veins and pump up the wings. And finally, the soft adult pulls itself completely free. Now the adult cicada hangs. Another hour passes as it dries and hardens. Wings reach full size, and now it's just a matter of time until they harden into their familiar plastic-like state. The cicada's strength is evident as it easily holds its full weight by the front legs only. Night passes. Dawn finds the now hardened adult instinctively moving onto a secure twig, leaving the old nymphal skin behind. It may hang there for weeks to remind of a summer ritual. On a July night while most are sleeping, cicadas arise to fill the air with the sound of summer. I'm Mike Blair for Positively Kansas.
Cicadas were actually eaten in ancient Greece and are consumed today in China. They don't intentionally bite, but they've been known to mistake a person's arm for a plant limb and attempt to feed. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Now that federal funding has been taken away and our PBS Kansas budget dramatically cut, we need to decide which programs to keep and which ones to cancel. If you'd like to see Positively Kansas remain on the air, you can go to kpts.org and make a $100 donation to help keep the show funded. For my part, I'm hosting the show for free. As a thank you, your name will soon appear at the start and end of the show each week as a valued supporter. I'm Sierra Scott. We'll see you next time.